What's up guys, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Dave. I am a photographer from the Bay Area of California. And what we're doing today is we're gonna take a look at some of the images that I captured just recently in the desert of California on the east side of the Sierras. If you didn't get a chance to see that video, be sure to watch it. I have linked it right above. It's how I kicked off 2024. Incredible experience with incredible people. Be sure to watch it. Again, it's linked right above. And I'm gonna take a look at some of the photos. This is not curated. I have not pre-selected these photos. We're just gonna go through all of the images that I got on this trip, and we're gonna pick some at random to show you how the Leica M11 files edit. And I'll be using some of the presets from Very Good Presets. You can see how they work as well. But ultimately, I wanna show you guys just how editable and how flexible the Leica M11 files are. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of them. We'll dive in and we'll see what looks good on some of these shots. Let's start off just with one of these telephone pole photos. How about this one here? It was a pretty moody, cloudy day when we were driving. I think I did an okay job getting focus on this. If we pixel peep on this, we might see that it is not completely perfect, but that's okay. This was taken on the Leica M11 with the 35 Summilux. And let's go ahead and take a look at one of the Very Good presets. Why don't we, on this one, why don't we just throw on generalities? This is a free preset that I offer. I did a whole video about this. This was gonna be part of a different pack, but I offered it for free or for donation to raise money to save our family cat. Man, you guys as a channel, you came through, so thanks a lot. Crunchy's kicking it and doing well, and you can watch the video and learn more about that. Generalities looks really good on a lot of these photos in the desert. I'm gonna crop this one in, and then we'll take a look at the flexibility. So let's talk about the sky, because, I mean, if you see the histogram here, I shot this very properly exposed. It's not blown out, it's not underexposed, but there's so much range. If you look at the histogram, like I can bring the highlights way down. Everything is there, nothing is lost. And that's not necessarily an edit I would do because I don't like that like overly HDR look, you know, this kind of vibe here. Like I do not like that at all. Let's push the exposure down. You're gonna see my sensor spots, but you can see like there is a ton of space before we even start getting really crazy here. If we go the other way with it, you know, if we were to look at like some of the deeper shadows, and again, I didn't nail focus, so don't judge me too hard. You know, you have good information retained just about in every part of the photo. Maybe this one would demonstrate this better. This is in the little town of Randsburg. You can see we've got some very dark spots over here. And if you look at the histogram, we are right at both ends of the spectrum. But if I was to just see what's going on in the shadows, look how much room I have. I'm able to pick out that there is something under here. And before, I don't really have any information here to my eye, but there is a ton of space here to push these shadows up. And of course you get a little noise, but I mean, who is ever gonna do a photo like that? That same little town of Randsburg, let's put Portra 400 on this one. Definitely gonna have to push it, but I wanna take a look at what's going on here inside the jail and see if we can see what's going on in the shadows here. In fact, let me just, for the sake of taking a peek inside the jail, let me get rid of the preset. I mean, that's pretty incredible. Now, granted, again, we're just seeing what is captured, but I had no clue there were bars right there. This is the first time I've seen this, which is pretty cool that that much information is captured off that sensor when this is how I shot it. Definitely a little underexposed. But let's edit it. Let's throw on Portra 400. Let's push it. Let's make it glow a little bit. Increase that grain. And there we have it. All right, let's talk about this one here. This is also in Randsburg. Man, the town is just so freaking cool. Here are my friends Julian and Kelly. Let's use gold 200 on these, and let's warm it up a little bit, make it a little more saturated. Yeah, I mean, I think that looks really, really good. One thing I love about the Leica files is just how much information is, I feel like, in every single pixel. And honestly, this is like true of most modern systems too. I shoot Sony as well, and the Sony A7R5 and 4 and even the 3 are all incredible cameras. But for Leica to be like such a minimal camera, minimal experience, you really don't expect such depth of tech inside the sensor out of a camera like that. And typically, Leica, from a tech standpoint, lags behind the other brands. Like you look at their SL line, which I'm filming this on the SL2S, it doesn't have a flip out screen, it doesn't have phase autofocus. I mean, these are things that were very common when this camera was made. But you can see here that the Leica M11 sensor has so much information on it, like you get from any other state-of-the-art modern system. Let's see how it does shooting into the sun. So we were in Randsburg for sunrise. I put the camera in F9 to get like a sun star here. Let's throw on gold 200 and let's warm it up. All right, now you definitely would know that, the sun is obviously blown out. But as we look at like what got overexposed, I mean, it's just the sun and this small area around the sun that has no information. Yet when I look at the original file, which by the way, have you guys noticed, like, it is early January 2024. The latest version of Lightroom is buggy as can be. I wish I would have never updated to it. Like, it's doing weird thumbnails, it's twisting my photos around, like, it's driving me crazy. Let's look at it this way. You can see here, it looks like the whole sky would be lost information. But the reality is, it is not. It's all there except for this one area, including my sensor spots. They're there too. Hey, and by the way, if you like this kind of video where we're talking about gear, we're talking about editing and photography and things like this, like I do on this channel, you can see all my videos if you haven't ever looked at any of them. Be sure to subscribe and join the channel and the community. I try to respond to every single comment and respond to every single message I get, whether it's a DM on Instagram or an email. I try to always be responsive. So be sure to subscribe and drop a comment below and say hi. All right, let's jump back in. One of the coolest moments that I got to experience out there, and you can see this on the video, was this scene in the desert. We went out there, we drove on this like 5-mile dirt road. It took forever, going 10 miles an hour. You had all this rain, mud, and we got out there. We almost bailed. Like we almost were like, should we go? The weather sucks. Like, should we even go out there? But we did. And we got out there and all of a sudden the sky opened up, the sun came out. This is probably one of my favorite photos from the whole thing. But let me show you the original because this photo has been edited with gold 200. But let's go back to the original here. All right, that's the original. Very magenta, and that's how it looked. But let's talk about what information is there. If I take the highlights down, the sky is all retained. Everything is there. All information is there. I don't really have a dark, shadowy area to peep into, but how about right here on the rock? We can see inside the shadow a little bit. Again, not that you ever would, but it's nice to know that it's there. The information is there. Put gold 200 back on it. Let me get that temperature back down. Let's get all this back to where it was. There we go. Yeah, again, one of my favorite images from the whole trip. Absolutely loved this moment. I also posted this photo, and at first glance you might think, man, this is a very edited photo, but it actually is not as edited as you may think it is. Let me go ahead and just save this version of it. Let's pull the original up. This is the original shot. This is how it looked. If we pull those highlights down and the exposure down, you can see all of the sky and all of its colors, including the cloud texture right in here, is all there. What I did was I brought the shadows down, I brought the temperature up, blacks down a little bit, and then I think I threw a little curve on the bottom just to fade those blacks a touch. Big fan of faded blacks. This is the actual edit. Looks really good. Love it. Here's a portrait of Amanda out in Red Rock Canyon. Let's go with Jupiter RGB for this one, which is kind of like a cinematic look. Put on Jupiter RGB, let's make it high contrast, and let's push it a touch maybe. No, we won't push it. Maybe we'll just a little bit. We'll do a little manual push. But that looks awesome. Love the way that looks. And again, the sky, all that information is there. The original file, the edit. So much flexibility with these M11 files. Okay, since we're in Red Rock Canyon State Park, let's take a look at this scene because this scene is really cool. When you have dark skies or darker clouds, you have shadow, but you also have sunlight. This screams monochrome. It screams black and white. So let's take FP4 and put it on here. Let's make it high contrast, and then we're gonna underexpose it by pulling it some. We can just use this even. We'll pull it down, there we go. I would even push the contrast more. Maybe not pull it down quite so much, but my gosh, like That look right there, that is one of my favorite looks, is black and white scene with dark clouds, bright light, shadows. Man, it's hard to beat that. If you're ever out shooting and you have these kind of conditions, just plan on making it black and white because you have to. Just minutes later, we were back to being gray. So since we're here, you can see black and white just doesn't look as good as it does here. That is a special photo. But let's take one like this and let's put on Portra 400. I always like making it glow. And let's bump the grain a touch for that 35 look. And yeah, I mean, we've got a nice filmic looking photo. Okay, here are some shots that really demonstrate the M11's capabilities. I could not have had worse lighting for this scene. We parked our car in Aspendale, the road was closed to this lake, and we walked down the road 2 miles each direction, but it was like walking up the whole way. I think we gained something like 700 or 800 feet in elevation. It wasn't a bad walk, but it was uphill the entire way. We get to this lake, lighting could not have been worse. The Sierras were backlit by the sun, and when you look at this, you just think, what can you do with it? Like literally, what can you do? So after playing around with the edit, here's a very tweaked version of Jupiter RGB that got me where I needed to be. So I was able to go from this is how it came straight out of the camera, to this, with all of this information there. I've got the trees, the snow, even the mountain details in the back. Like, it's crazy to me that all that information is there. If I turn the grain down, we can kind of go in and look. You can clearly see the range. You can see the snow on the range. You can see the shadows and the crevices and everything. Let's compare that to this shot here out of the camera to what you can do with the edit. This is like wild to me that we're able to go this far with a shot like this. And I could even push it even further, I feel like, if I needed to, if I wanted to add a little like haziness to it and make it just have a little bit of a different feel. It definitely can be done. If I throw this to a vertical 5x4, you get this really cool shot. It's wild to me that the M11 in such a small, compact camera can take me from this to this. Okay, here's one from the video that I had to make a major change to. So when I shot this photo, it actually was a vertical composition, and you can see me down there with my arm up in a vertical position, ready to go. I didn't like in post the vertical composition, and so with having 60 megapixels, I could simply flip it on its side, bring it in, square it up a little, and still have an incredibly sharp photo, but I've cropped it in from all of this to this little box here. I come in here and I'm going to use FP4. Going to make it high contrast because in this scene, even though it's already high contrast, I want to overemphasize that. So I'm going to underexpose it. I'm going to push those highlights a little more, push the whites up a little bit, and go for a very stark and dramatic monochrome look. Below is a link with a gallery full of images from the M11 as well as the M6 from this trip. You can check that out. What I wanted to demonstrate here is 2 things. One, that the M11 files are so flexible that you really can dial in the look that you're going after and do the things that really speak to you and not feel limited by the raw files. I've been doing photography a long time. If I go back to some of my earlier shots with much earlier cameras with very limited dynamic range and very limited ability to crop or whatever, then what happens is, like, you have to get it really right on the front end, and that seems like a good thing, right? Because we want to do as much as possible on the front end and get it right, and I still very much do today. But I love that in post, I can make a decision about a composition, for instance, a vertical crop of a chair, and now I want it horizontal. I can actually do that. I'm not limited by my gear. Like, I can do that. I also love that I can use different presets to achieve different looks with tons of flexibility in both color and contrast and dynamic range. These are all awesome things, and you may recall, if you've been around a while, I've been through several Leica M bodies. I had the M10, the M10R, and now the M11. And the M11 continues just to impress me every time I use it, both in terms of the files and the output, but also in terms of the usability of this camera. The battery lasts all day and then some, where I used to carry 4 batteries to get through a day on the M10R. All right, guys, that's gonna be it for today. If you like these looks and presets, links are below. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe. All that stuff helps the channel to grow. Thank you guys for sticking around, and I will see you next time.